left for the Sandinista party to do the electioneering. Now the opposition kept campaigning. I stood by the road in Escalade for hours one day waiting for the main opposition candidate to come by. He didn't come. Finally, I took a break. I walked home and got some lunch and walked back, and I missed it by half an hour. But one of my friends told me significantly, although the area was flooded with refugees and shelters and stuff, he never even mentioned flooding, refugee problem, nothing like that. But there was campaigning, and there was lots of ads on TV. There were 5 parties running, and actually only one of them was a party. Most of them are alliances. Even the Sandinistas, they run in alliance. A bunch of little parties and other groups associate with it in a political alliance. One party ran by itself, but all the other 4 parties were in alliance with smaller and other parties. Lots of billboards. I actually met a member of the legislature, a sitting member who was elected by one of the conservative parties, but he switched over to this new party. He lost. He wasn't reelected. He just didn't have much money. It didn't see much campaigning stuff for them except some graffiti and a few posters. But the 3 main parties, which would be the Sandinistas, their main opposition turned out to be the Partido Liberal Institucional, Institutional Liberal Party, and then the other conservative party, which is Guadalajara's party. Let me show the sample ballot here. I went to the opposition party's office and they gave me this sample ballot. The PLC, the Liberal Constitutional Party's candidate, ex-president Alemán, was famous for stealing money. My Sandinistas friends say he stole $1 million a month for all the time he was in office. So there was the PLC, the FSLN, the Sandinistas. The ALN was number 9. That's the Nicaraguan Liberal Alliance. Liberal means conservative. I mean, there are conservative parties and liberal parties, but they're all some branch of conservatism. This was the new party, Abra, which got very little support, and the PLI, which was the Alianza Partido Liberal Independiente, it was, not institutional. And that ended up being his main opposition. So the ballot was quite simple, but like I said, every party had its colors. So the PLC was a solid red, Sandinistas red and black, the ALN the red with the white check mark, Abra green, red and blue, PLI the red with the white star and their initials in the middle. Then every party has its number. And for historical reasons, some of these have higher numbers. When I viewed the election in 1990, there were a whole lot of parties. And not that many parties are running individually nowadays. So it was actually 3 different elections, 4 elections in a way. President and vice president. For the legislature, there was 2 types of legislature for candidates. You vote for candidates from your state, but you also voted for a national slate of delegates. So there was 2 different ways to vote for delegates to the national legislature, and then 2 deputies to the Central American Parliament. But it's actually quite a simple ballot. Also, there would be a picture of the presidential candidate and the presidential and vice presidential candidate's name. So number, color, name written out of the party, picture of the candidate, name of the candidate, vice presidential candidate. So it was nobody that I talked to had any confusion with the ballot. So the campaigning went on. Here's some more youth. We saw these people in a little town. We went and while we were there, Chuck came down the road with a speaker playing campaign songs. One of the campaign songs was the old Beatles song, I Should Have Known Better, with lyrics for Danielle. The Frente Sandinistas major campaign song was the old song, Stand By Me, with new lyrics written by the president's wife. And every kid in the country knew that song. Here's Abra and Alyssa without these kids on the street. Just a little town. This is an opposition office in a little town that I became familiar with. I'll tell you the story real quick. I met a guy who works with an organization called Ethics and Transparency, which is funded from the U.S. And basically they're there to tried to discredit the election. I asked him if I could interview him. He said, yeah. We had an interview, talked to him, he told me two distinct lies. Number one, I said, where do you get your funding? He said, there is no funding. I said, how do you pay for office supply? I mean, they got big billboards around the country, so I said, I pay for office supply. He said, it's just all, we just bring it in ourselves, there's no funding. And I knew that was not true. Another thing, he said, the election will be rigged, because when they go to send out the election results from each voting table, they just change them and send them off. And now that I know the process and how it works, that doesn't happen and it can't happen. But anyway, so we had our interview, I took his picture, and then he left. And I was in a, what they call a cyber cafe, where you can go get on the internet, there's computers, you pay a little bit, you can get on the internet. I was checking my email, he left, and within just a couple minutes, he was back, tapping me on the shoulder. And he said, there's been an irregularity. You must come, bring your camera, there's been an irregularity. So I followed him out, we went next door, which was that building there, which was the campaign office of the main opposition party. And we went in, and this guy came out with a handful of cut-up voter ID cards, about 5 cut-up voter ID. And he said, see, the Sandinistas did this, they're trying to steal the election. It's quite ridiculous for several reasons. For one, you have to cut up a lot of ID cards. And if you lost your ID card, you can go to the Electoral Council and get a temporary document and you can vote. So, I mean, it just made no sense. And I ended up feeling it was just for my benefit, because what this organization does is try to influence foreigners who are observing the process to try to get it discredited, because they knew they were going to lose the election. Anyway, that's what happened in that office. And this is when Fabio Videla, the main opposition candidate, paraded through Esteli. This was one of their floats, and that was their office. I visited this office before the election. They gave me this Fabio Videla campaign booklet, which is pretty nonsensical. On the back, it shows the ballot, what it looked like actually with his picture on there. Might want to take a look at that. And I was there, I went and stopped in during the day of the election. At lunchtime, I stopped in there quick. And after the election, once they'd known they lost, I visited the office again. And this is another party's office, and this is a young woman that I know who was an electoral observer for this party. Each party has a right to have somebody in every polling place. And this is the Managua headquarters of the ALN party. This is that deputy from a legislator that I met, who's no longer a legislator. This is just campaign signs. This is Daniel's, one of his campaign posters. We got several similar ones back there. That's the youth organization sign. And this is election day. Now on election day, this is people coming and checking their voter rolls, yes?
Who is the woman next to Danielle?
That's his wife.
Okay.
She is the official government spokesperson. Many people actually consider they have a co-presidency. By the way, I've hardly spoken about women, which is one of the main topics of news going on in Nicaragua. Women run the police, which is national police. A woman has that. A woman's the head of the Supreme Court. Women have the ministries of defense, labor, health, education. It's kind of the internal affairs, and several others that are slipping in my mind right now. Women are very prominent in the government, and many of the government programs are going specifically to help women. Anyway, these are people finding their name on the voters list. Then they show their ID and they go in and vote. This is our friend Alfredo. This is 6 o'clock in the morning. He and I are going to this is a school where there were 10, what they call juntos de receptores de votos, and they're voting tables. This school had 10 classrooms. Each is a separate voting place, run separately. In each voting place, you have somebody running the table with 2 people helping, and then the observers from each party. Now that little new party, Abra here, they just didn't even have enough, they hardly even got 1 vote actually. It doesn't have enough people to have the volunteers show up, but the other 4 parties have their representatives in there. And officially, the 3 people running the table are supposed to count the votes, where I watched. The observers help, because all counted the votes together. Anyway, at 6 o'clock in the morning, we're going to have a camera on the deck. There were 2 police officers out, and Alfredo said, remember I was an official electoral observer in 1990, but I was just there as a citizen. And they said, this is my friend. You'd like to, watch the election. And the police said, that's fine, but actually you're not supposed to take pictures inside the polling places. I said, fine, I put the camera in my pocket, and I left it there. I could have taken a lot of pictures inside, and my friend running the place said, why didn't you take a bunch of pictures? And I said, I didn't come to your country to disrespect your rules, and I was told no pictures inside the voting place. So this is people coming and going in the school. You notice the sign on the school wall saying no more violence. Usually the schools, if they have walls around, there's environmental messages and such and so forth going to be on the walls. This is the voter lists. People would come here. There were lots of people to help. You find your name on the list because there was 10 classrooms, so you know which classroom to go to vote. Here's people finding their names. There's more people leaving after they voted. I interviewed people after they voted. Nobody had any problem. Nobody had to talk to, thought anything except the election was going to be fair, honest, etc. Now this is the day after, so I could show you the setup. Each building has 2 classrooms. There were 10 classrooms with a number on them. And the little papers you see there, after they count the votes, they post the result for the public to see. This is the voting booths. They just have little portable, collapsible cardboard. When they were voting, they were turned to the wall. What I was able to see from when they opened the poll till the last vote was counted, they packed up the ballots and went down to go off and transmit the results. That's the box that the ballots came in. There's some collapsed voting booths. More box that the ballots came in. Classroom number 4. Here's the results of the election. Now, Leon is a pretty solid Sandinista town. In this neighborhood, in this voting place, the president got 137 votes. Fabio Vedea got 50, and the smaller parties got 1. For the deputies, 140, 51, etc. Classroom number 5, Danielle got 150, Fabio got 46, etc. Now these are 2 young ladies I know who were poll watchers. She was for the Sandinistas, she was for the ALN party. And they told me about their experiences, how it worked out and stuff, how they counted the votes. Now, at the polling place that she was, she said that some opposition youth, max youth, came and started throwing rocks at the polling place. She said where she was, there were 5 or 6 women and 1 man in there, and they were kind of scared. They called the cops. Of course, by the time the cops came, the youth had ran away. Anyway, they were both official poll watchers. This is the voting ID, which is not only used for voting, but getting a passport, getting a driver's license, etc. This is the official credential for being a poll watcher for your party. Heidi was from the ALN party. Though they were from different parties, they were good friends. Another friend of theirs from the ALN party, this was her credential. And this is a campaign. This is from the previous municipal election. I put this up there because it's very clear and easy to see. This is how they count the vote. They have the party listed. They write down the number of votes the party gets, and then they write it down in words. Right? And this says 1, 0, 6, or 8, 7, 1, 0, 7. So there's no chance that there's any confusion about what the actual total is. Now this is the document when they open up the polling place. They all get in there, everybody's supposed to be there. They set up the ballots, they set up the chairs, they set up the voting places, and then when they're all ready to go, they all sign this document. It tells the time, the place, the voting place number, everybody's name, their ID number, their signature. Down here they've all signed, and this says we've opened the polling place on time, we've opened it legally, according to the rules, and all these people, including poll watchers. They've been through training, they know what the law is, they know what the rule is, and they have committed themselves to obey the law. They've all signed it saying, we're opening this polling place in a legal fashion. Then when they go, I was watching 10 voting places, but I concentrated particularly on one, but I circulated around and see how. They didn't count them the same in every one, like in the main one I watched, they will count the presidential election first, and they kind of dealt them out to the people from the parties who were observing. They say, oh, here's one for you, here's one for you, and they'd take their stack, and they'd all recount them, then they recounted them all over again several times, and they all wrote it down until they all finally said, that's it, they've all agreed, that is the count. Then they recounted for the next race, for the legislative race, the first legislative race, the second legislative race, and then for the Central American Parliament. It actually took them a couple hours. Polling place opened about 6. It was supposed to close at 6 in the evening. Actually, where I was, it stayed open until about 10 minutes after 7, until they were absolutely sure nobody else wanted to vote. And it took them a couple hours to count the votes. Everybody was totally agreed. Like this is for the legislative races and for the Central American Parliament. And they've all signed down here. The signature says all of us from all these different parties were signing it saying this is the actual count in this polling place. And then they have several one for the presidential election. And it's faded. My friend, there's another thing. Everybody that worked in that polling place leaves with a carbon copy of the results. So this is in their pocket. It's folded up. It's a little bit faded. But if you look close, you'll see the presidential totals here, and then everybody is signed except nobody from the Abra party, because nobody showed up from the Abra party. Everybody from all the parties is signed, said this is the actual result here of this election. Then when they're all done, they close everything up. They've got a closing document. In this document, there's a chance if you think there was an irregularity, something went wrong, something wasn't right, something was disputed, something wasn't legal, there's a place to write that down and to dispute it. If you disputed the count or whatever, then my understanding is those ballots would be packaged up, sent to Nicaragua, where they would be counted by officials there. But that only happened, or anything, even any kind of problem of that everything went smoothly, happened in 50 polling places out of over 13,000. So very, very little problem. And overwhelmingly, almost every place, everybody from every party signed these documents saying these are the ballot results of this election. So they've all signed right here, as you can see, except for the Abra party, who were a no-show, saying we did the whole thing, the process is done, ballots are counted, everything is legal, copacetic, we're done here. Except then, let me just go back and tell you the rest of the process. Then they have these official results, the count forms that I showed you. They take them. I was watching my friend's polling place. They packaged them all up. They took the documents of the results. They went down to the gate. There were several police officers down there. All the people from all the polling places, the 10 places, came down and worked. They had their box of ballots. They had their result papers. They stood by the gate until a truck came by. They all, people from the different parties, got on the truck. Now this is the only part I wasn't able to witness. And I asked my friend afterwards. He said, we get on the truck, we go down, I believe it was the telephone company, it was some technological office. He said, we go to the office, and there's a bank of computers. He said, since I was the head of the table at my place, I take out the result, the paper that says this is the official result. Everybody says, that's it, that's what I signed. They slide it into a scanner. There's a bank of computers. It comes up on all the computer screens. There's somebody from each party at a computer. They all look at it. Everybody says, that's it. That's the official result. They transmit it to Managua. All Managua does is tabulate votes. In Managua, there's a center where they receive. Once again, bank of computers, somebody from each party sitting there. They all see everything on the screen. They all say, that's it. And then they just add it up. So that's the process. And this is the opposite. And the results of the election. And so probably about 9:30, they were all done. We got out the truck and went. And I walked home alone through the dark streets. At some point somebody said it could be dangerous, you know. opposition people might be looking for trouble or something. But it was fine. I walked by a group of about 6 young men, and I said hi to them, they said hi to me. You know, I didn't see anything amiss going on. I walked home. Probably got home by about 10. Folks had the TV on. They said probably sometime after midnight, 1 o'clock, there'd be preliminary results. Actually, about 11:30, the head of the Supreme Electoral Council came on the TV and said that there was an irreversible trend that the president would be reelected. And at that time, about 11:30 at night, the city of Esteli went into a roar, just a roar that gave me goosebumps and made my hair try to stand up, what little I have. And the city just roared and just kept on roaring. Abra was trying to sleep, she couldn't sleep. I was totally exhausted because I went to the polling place at 6 in the morning, and I had to walk from there at lunchtime downtown to see some other polling places. I was exhausted. My friend Carlos, who ran the voting place, got me earlier because he had to be at the voting place at 5 in the morning, so we were just so tired. But at 1 in the morning, we got a second breath, and finally, and the city was still roaring.
Right, you couldn't sleep. Like, you could hear the whole city cheering and singing. Campaign songs were playing. People were honking their car horns. It was the whole city. No one was.
So at 1 o'clock, Carlos and I went out. We walked downtown. We did pass a little people who were filtering home by that time, but we got downtown. And let's see, here's what we. This is what we. This is 1:30 in the morning. There were trucks parading all around, people partying and celebrating. And the next afternoon, the youth organized a concert that went on way into the night that night, dancing, singing. This is the last picture we show. Just a bunch of kids in a short bed pickup truck celebrating the victory of the president. And that pretty much is emblematic of the spirit of the majority of people in the country. And the update on this is things have only gotten better in the last 6 months since we came back. The economic statistics. Last year, their exports grew by 35%. Now, the U.S. is the main trading partner, Europe, Canada. That's putting a little damper on it. But the first half of this year, they've grown by another 13%. They finished last year, believe it or not, with a budget surplus. They have 2.5 times the recommended foreign currency reserves. The international lending agencies give them great ratings. I read one of the international lending agencies, their financial officer for the area, said, okay, you loan Nicaragua some money for schools. They have wonderful bookkeeping, very transparent, and then you can go see the schools. They built them, they're operational, and it works. And that's the way they are. I mean, everything is like on the up and up. The money gets used for good things. They pay off their debts. They, in a way, they're conservative in their financial dealings. I mean, they don't want to get themselves into any problems. The health stats are looking good. The educational stats are looking good. All kinds of progress on the environment. And I'd just like to say nothing. This is an election, but as President Correa of Ecuador said last year, you know, we can have elections, but that's not really democracy. You know, what really proves to me that Nicaragua is moving towards being a democracy is that people are feeling empowered in their neighborhoods. They're organized in their neighborhoods. There's committees of citizens' power that have input to the government. They feed information to the government and say, well, this is the street that needs to be fixed. This is the school where we need attention. This is the neighborhood where we have a crime problem. And by the way, I failed to talk to you about the police. All over the country, I said, well, what about the police? And people said, we like them. They're our friends. They help us. They're very reasonable. If we have a problem, we go to them. I read an interview with the sub-director of police, the guy who's right under the woman who heads the police, and he was, they have wonderful crime stats by Central American standards, unbelievably good. Violent crime is low. They have poorly paid police, the fewest police with the lowest budget, and they get the best results. The subcommander, the interviewer said, well, some people are upset about, by the way, the drug trade, they've got, compared to anyone else, under control. I mean, it happens, but they are like way on top of it. Drugs have not permeated their culture. Organized crime has not permeated their culture like it has in the region in general. But the interviewer said, some people are upset about drugs and what crime on the street does exist. And what you should use, he referred to the mano duro, the hard hand or the heavy hand. And the sub-director of police said, that's what they do in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. They haven't solved crime. Crime is a complex social and economic problem, and it's never going to be solved by putting a bunch of people in jail. That's not our model, and we're not going to do it. And that is really emblematic. I'll give you an example. Right before the election, it was on TV, I'm watching it. There's these opposition youth, and I said to their friends, what's the deal? And they said, well, they pay them 10 or 20 bucks, and they put a mask on, they go out and cause some kind of trouble. They went before an electoral council office and they started smashing windows of cars. And I'm watching on TV and I'm just going like, where are the cops? Where are the cops? I mean, not law and order guy really, but I wonder, where are the cops? But their philosophy is, we'd rather have a few broken windows and a few broken bones or a few dead people. So the cops will form a perimeter, make sure it doesn't get out of hand, but if they possibly can, they'll avoid the confrontation because the opposition will say, oh, we're being oppressed, the police are, so they lay back. Also, there was a demonstration before the election. The opposition was angry because they didn't get the march location they wanted because there was a bigger march going on, and they rioted. It was mostly unarmed women police. And over 20 police went to the hospital, and no rioters were injured. None were even arrested. That's how hands-off they are. Maybe a little too, I don't know. But I mean, they're just, violence is as a last resort, which to me is indicative of the type of human society. And another thing about democracy, about the second day after the election, the president's wife, Rosario Murillo, this official spokesperson for the government, said, beloved families of Nicaragua, tell us what you want us to do, and we'll do it. And I believe that really encapsulates the spirit of this government. They exist for the people. And it is a government much closer than almost any government I know to being a government of the people, by the people, for the people, right down to the neighborhood level. When they try to solve a problem, they want it to be starting right in the family. And it's a country where people in the government regularly talk about love. About love. I was reading an account of the graduation of a police class, an advanced police class of some kind of specialist police officer. And the valedictorian of the class gave a speech, and he mostly talked about love. When the president's wife talks, she gives like a regular report what's going on in the government. She'll often talk about love. She'll say, what we're doing is we're trying to build a society where everyone can live in dignity so that we will be free to love each other. And you can feel it. And it's a lot different than living here. Any more questions?
How safe did you feel having her with?
I personally felt safe.
She wasn't with me much of the time.
Yeah, Alyssa and I were off doing our own thing. I don't recall feeling unsafe at any time.
When I was in Mexico one time, it seemed like there was total harassment of blonde women. That's why I wondered.
Well, I mean, it's a machista society.
There was definitely, I know what you're saying, and that's not to say that, we weren't whistled at and yelled at quite a bit, but it wasn't anything.
You didn't
incredible.
feel unsafe
Just
anyway.
ignore them and keep walking and
La-
nothing's gonna happen.
Last year, there were 1,040,000 tourists visited Nicaragua. There were 300 reported crimes by tourists. I'm assuming no homicides. I'm assuming absolutely no kidnapping. Kidnapping almost doesn't exist in Nicaragua, almost never happens. Car theft is extremely rare. When I rented a car, I went to, and I thought, well, I'm not going to take this part of insurance. If nobody ever steals a car here, I'm not going to insure myself against it, you know? The biggest crime problem is domestic violence, unfortunately, which is a crime virtually everywhere in the world, and they're all over it. They just passed a new Violence Against Women Act. They are having a meeting, I think it's July, it might have been in June, or I think it was in July, of all the agencies that deal with social matters and all kinds of public organizations to come up with a strategy to counter domestic violence. It's now, if you know there's gender violence of any kind going on, you are obligated to report it. I mean, for instance, if you're a neighbor and you know there's something going on, or if you're in public and you see a woman physically abused, you are legally obligated to report that to the police. but you know, they're walking a fine line because they don't really want to put a bunch of guys in jail. I mean, it just means more kids without their dad. I mean, they're trying to solve the problem by coming at it from multiple angles. In the countryside, one thing that's helping is the empowerment of women economically. The woman has more economic power, she has better status in the family, more power and more respect. And children are being taught in the schools. I asked a preschool teacher, and she said that children are being taught that boys should be doing domestic chores as well. And I was pleased in the household we lived that the 10-year-old boy, is he 10? 10-year-old boy, he was sweeping, he was doing dishes. You know, I was wondering if that would actually happen. So there are a lot of things they think they got to work through the children. You know, I mean, domestic violence is not a problem that any of us are going to solve, you know, very easily.
I can excuse myself.
Yeah. Anything else? Yes, Rob?
Is there a way that people can help, say for instance, if they were willing to give some kind of monetary gift to help those children in the dump? Is there a way to get funding for them?
I'm sure we could find a way. Like we say, those children in the dump are being helped. But, you know, I have ways to get in contact with the woman who works directly with the program. You know, because a friend of mine in Nicaragua is very regularly in touch with her. So, yeah, that means it's really possible.
Would you want to give some kind of contact information so people might be able to get a hold of you, or email or something like that? Or should they call the radio, the television station, or?
My phone number, I'll give my phone number, 218-839-2985. 218-839-2985. If anybody's interested in talking about Nicaragua in any respect, I'm always glad to do it.
And your name, of course, is?
My name is Fisk. This is my daughter, Abra. Fisk.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you
I'll just
very much.
quickly show you a couple pictures of how beautiful these children are.
Yeah.
Will you be returning at some point again?
Oh, yeah, sometime.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.